There are certain true crime stories so sad and disturbing that it chills your spine every time you think about it. The unsolved disappearance of Dorothy Scott is one of those cases. Our story today involves a stalker, a mysterious phone caller, and a disturbing abduction and murder. This is a true crime story of Dorothy Jane Scott. Welcome to this channel. Today we'll be taking a look at the unsolved disappearance of Dorothy Jane Scott. Before we continue, make sure you like, share and subscribe to get notified about the latest videos. And now let's take a look at the case of Dorothy Scott. Dorothy Jane Scott was born on April 23, 1948, and she was a single mother living in Stanton, California, with her aunt and her 4-year-old son. She worked as a secretary for 2 jointly owned stores. According to her friends and co-workers, Dorothy preferred staying at home, was a devout Christian, and did not drink or do drugs. Dorothy usually left her son in the care of her parents while she worked, and while she may have dated on occasion, her father Jacob said that she had no steady boyfriend as far as the family knew. In the months before she was abducted, Dorothy began receiving strange phone calls at work from an unidentified male. This mysterious caller called sometimes to tell Dorothy how much he loved her, and would call her other times to tell her how he intended to kill her. This mysterious caller would also leave strange items for Dorothy, with her mother recounting one instance when this happened. Vera, Dorothy's mother, said, "One day he called and said to go outside because he had something for her. She went out and there was a single dead rose on the windshield of her car." Dorothy also received a horrifying call from this mysterious stalker in which he told Dorothy how he would get her alone and cut her up into bits so no one will ever find her. Horrified by these disturbing calls and worried for her safety, Dorothy began considering the purchase of a handgun. She also started taking karate lessons about a week before her disappearance. On May 28, 1980, at around 9 p.m., Dorothy was at an employee meeting at work when she noticed that her co-worker Conrad Bostron didn't look too well and had a red mark on his arm. She left the meeting together with her co-worker Pam Head to take Bostron to the emergency room at UC Irvine Medical Center. On the way to the hospital, they stopped by Dorothy's parents' house to check on her son. She also changed her black scarf to a red one. Sadly, this was the last time Dorothy would ever see her 4-year-old son. When they arrived at the hospital, the medical personnel who attended to Bostron determined that he had been bitten by a black widow spider and immediately began treating him. Dorothy and her co-worker Pam remained in the ER waiting room the entire time. At no time, Pam said, did Dorothy leave her side. Bostron was discharged around 11 p.m. with a prescription. Dorothy offered to bring the car up to the exit as she did not want Bostron walking all the way to the car in his condition, as he was not feeling too well. This was the last time that Bostron and Pam would ever see Dorothy alive. After filling Bostron's prescription, Pam and Bostron waited at the exit for Dorothy, and when she had not arrived after a few minutes, they went to the ER's parking lot to see what had happened. Suddenly, they saw Dorothy's car speeding towards them with the headlights in their faces, blinding them and preventing them from seeing who was behind the wheel. They waved their hands to try to get Dorothy's attention, but the car sped past them and took a sharp right turn out of the parking lot. At first, Bostron and Pam thought that Dorothy left in such a hurry because an emergency had probably come up with her son. But after not hearing from her for hours later, they contacted the police and reported her missing. The search for Dorothy began, with no one having any idea where she might be and who might have abducted her. On May 29, 1980, at about 4:30 a.m., Dorothy's car, a white 1973 Toyota station wagon, was found burning in an alley about 10 miles or 16 kilometers from the hospital. Neither Dorothy nor her supposed kidnapper were anywhere nearby, and while the police did everything in their power to find Dorothy and her abductor, it would be 4 long years before any trace of Dorothy would be discovered. On August 6, 1984, a construction worker discovered dog and human bones side by side about 30 feet or 10 meters from Santa Ana Crayon Road. The bones were partly charred, and authorities believed that the bones had been there for 2 years and were charred as a result of a bushfire that had swept across the site in 1982. A turquoise ring and watch were also found. Strangely, the time on the watch had stopped at 12:30 a.m. on May 29th, about an hour after Pam and Bostron last saw Dorothy's vehicle. On August 14th, everyone's worst fears about what might have happened to Dorothy was sadly confirmed, as the bones were identified as Dorothy's by dental records. An autopsy was held but failed to determine the cause of death. A memorial service was held for Dorothy Jane Scott on August 22nd, 1984. About a week after Dorothy's disappearance, her parents received a phone call from an unidentified man. When Dorothy's parents answered the phone, the mysterious caller said, "I've got her," and hung up. The same unidentified caller called almost every Wednesday afternoon and said either that he had Dorothy or he had killed her. This mysterious caller usually kept his calls brief, with most of his calls coming in when Vera was home alone. One evening in April 1984, the mysterious caller called. Jacob Scott answered, and the calls stopped. After Dorothy's remains were found in August 1984, the mysterious caller started calling again. This led police to install a voice recorder at the Scott residence. Sadly, because the mysterious caller not stayed on the line for a long time, the police were never able to trace the calls. On June 12, 1980, a possible motivation to explain Dorothy's abduction and murder surfaced when the Orange County Register, a newspaper that had run a story of the case that day, received a call at their front desk from an unidentified man. A managing editor told the police the man said, "I killed her. I killed Dorothy Scott. She was my love. I caught her cheating with another man. She denied having someone else. I killed her." According to the editor, the caller had known that Conrad Bostron had suffered from a spider bite the night of May 28th. He also knew that Dorothy had been wearing a red scarf and that she changed her black scarf to a red one after the employee meeting. Strangely, neither of these details had been published in the June 12th article. The mysterious caller also claimed that Dorothy had called him from the hospital that night, but Pam Head disputed that claim, saying that she had been with Dorothy the entire time and she had not made a phone call. Investigators believe the anonymous caller was responsible for Dorothy's death. Sadly, it is possible that we may never get to find out what truly happened to Dorothy Scott. Our hearts go out to the family and friends of Dorothy Scott, and we continue to hope that one day the truth behind this mysterious case finally comes to light. Thanks for watching. Feel free to share your thoughts on this case in the comments, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you found this video enjoyable.